We're so glad you're here. This workshop webinar is a little bit different than some of the other ones. We're really going to focus on the live chat aspect today. We're going to dive into the report, and we also want to hear a lot from you and let you all talk to each other and really have this be a collaborative, engaging, talkative session. So ask questions in the Q&A, post them directly in the chat, anywhere you'd like. We'll take your input and bring that into the discussion and have that be what we talk about. Like Jamie said, just make sure that in your Zoom chat webinar there that everyone is highlighted, not just hosts and panelists. That way everyone can see it and see what you have to say. And don't worry about taking notes. We will send the recording and the slides and the resources and the report and all that good stuff after the webinar is done. First things first, we just want to know how you're feeling.
We all had a really in-depth marketing discussion about the Pantone color of the year and the mood that was bringing. So feel free to drop the emoji version of how you're feeling about 2025.
Let's see. Brown is a choice. There it is. Yep.
Brown is a choice. All right. Tired but optimistic. I feel like a lot of us can relate to that. We've got a party hat emoji. All right. That's great.
Some sweat emojis though too. Cowboy hat.
I like cowboy hat. Yeah.
Big fan. Great. Ooh, the ghosty smiley face. I never know quite what to do with that one, but it says something.
I love this one. That's like one of my favorite emojis.
Oh, green sick face. All right. Well,
we're all over the place.
I think that's a good thing. And honestly, a lot of what we found in the report reflects that. So we'll kind of dive into it and really show some of those mixed reactions throughout. So that is super fun, everyone. We'll come up with a way to gather all those and do an emoji analysis. I don't know how to do that, but we'll figure it out. So first things first, to get into the discussion today, let's make sure that you do have a copy of the trends report. Kelsey will drop a link here in the chat to get the direct download. Probably posted a couple times, Kelsey, because things are flying through. But make sure you click that. That should take you right to the PDF copy in a browser window. You have one that is up to date, and we're all looking at the same thing, and you can download that and save it as well on your desktop. So that is what we'll be referencing throughout today's conversation. To dive into it, I just want to give a little overview of kind of why we do this. This is the third year that Workshop has published an internal comms trend report, and we just see so many people get a lot of value out of it. We share it throughout the year, and I know that people are using it for all kinds of purposes. And here's kind of the meat of why. Internal comms is moving fast. It's changing, it's growing. We're making really big strides in this area. But because it's internal, like a lot of our strategies and successes and all the things that we're doing stay internal. They're behind closed doors. So it can be difficult to learn from each other, see what each other are doing, share our common challenges, all that kind of stuff. We get to see some of the world's best internal comms here at Workshop, but we don't really get to show everyone those because they're internal for our customers. But we can do this, which is to take a survey, anonymize some of this data, and bring it forward to you all to share to help move all the strategies forward. So that's why we do it. I want to just get started with 6 really interesting takeaways from this year's survey, kind of the 6 that we bubbled up as our most interesting or ones to talk about. Number one, the number one challenge for internal communicators is still measuring results. We've seen this other years. We'll get into it. It is getting better. The numbers are better this year, but that is still something that everyone ranks as the hardest thing. Secondly, and new for this year, is that manager and frontline comms are 2 top areas of focus. That's something that did not bubble up in prior years, but it matches with some of the conversations we've been having. Thirdly, on this slide is internal communicators still say that email is their most effective channel. Again, we love email. We'll dive into it, but it's not going anywhere. And this year's survey really bears that out to show that email is still core to a lot of people's strategies. Keep going. We also found strong evidence that more teams are adopting video and in-person events. which is really, really cool to see. We're a number of years kind of post COVID and all that, but you're really seeing this stuff come back, and where people are seeing the value of FaceTime, whether that is true, real, in-person FaceTime or some of these digital events, and video opportunities. The fifth one on here is, of course, we asked about AI. You can't not ask about AI. And definitely see the trends going up in that in terms of interest, but not a lot of agreement among internal communicators about what exactly to do with it. So we'll get into a little of that too, but we're curious, but we're not exactly sure. And the sixth one we called out, it's really exciting to us, is we're seeing a bigger focus on feedback. So survey use took a big jump. We'll see a little bit more detail about it, but there's the robot emoji. That's my favorite. We're really seeing a focus on getting more feedback and using it, and how to make what our employees are telling us make our strategies better. So that's kind of our high level. We're going to break this discussion into 5 parts, which are the 5 kind of major headings of the trend survey. So we'll talk about budgets. We'll talk about the channels that we're using. We'll talk about metrics and measurement. We'll talk about the challenges that we're facing and how we're dealing with them. And then, of course, we'll look ahead to the year and talk about the goals and trends that we're seeing for the year to come. So let's get into it. First, we're going to talk about budgets. So the first thing that we asked everyone was to agree or disagree with the statement, "My organization has a solid foundation for internal comms." We didn't specify whether that meant money or support or emotional support or whatever. But here's the good news. It's up. So 81% of people said that they did feel positively about this question this year, up from 65 for last year. So it's really good to see that at least the vibes are up around internal comms. We're being seen in our organizations, where people are seeing the possibilities and the potential that we can offer. But the second question is, does your company have a dedicated internal comms budget? And that is not quite as encouraging. So 66% said neutral or worse to this question, which says we either know that we do not have a dedicated budget, or we're not really sure where our budget stands or how it fits into the overall budget picture. So that's really a significant call out. Is that I think it shows momentum, but it doesn't show that we're all the way there. We're starting to be seen, or we're not necessarily seeing that support. Some of you are already doing this part here.
Yeah, so tell us, as we said, we wanted to do a lot of discussion as part of this. So pretty much anytime if we have a blue slide here, we're going to be asking a question of all of you as well. Would love to hear kind of what's your current budget situation. Please feel free to let us know. Add any advice in the chat if you do have that budget and you've gotten it. Any advice for advocating for that. But we'll give everyone a little bit of time here. It seems lots of no budgets. We'd hear that very, very often, very frequently, almost always. And we work with companies every single day to actually build that budget use case. But it is very frequent that you have to build that argument, and that internal comms is not handed a budget. Wrapping into HR or marketing, I always recommend talk to the marketing team because we typically do have a little bit more budget, and it's very easy for marketing to see sort of the value of internal comms too. Oh my gosh, so many good answers here. No set budget, but can request budget when I need it. Again, that's probably the most common scenario we see, is that if you're able to make that strong use case, you can get that budget. But yeah, lots of great advice here.
I think that reflects there was a lot of showing in the neutral responses, which I wasn't sure what to make of at first, but it's probably in cases like that where it's not necessarily, no one has said 0, but no one has said a number either.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool.
This is really great stuff. We will, and again, everyone will get a copy of the chat as well. So there's a ton of data here that we're going to be super interested in, and you all can be as well, to just try to get as many insights out of this as possible from each other. Always had a budget at 6 organizations. Wow, lucky you. Kelsey also posted a budget proposal template that we've published before. That is a good way to just kind of organize your thinking around this budget question, and help yourself if you are one of those who has to ask for it every time you need a few bucks. That is a great way to justify your tools and your ROI and all the things of your plans that you can use to. I hit the constantly on a use case advocate carousel. Well said, Chris. All right, well let's keep going because we do have a lot to get through. Next, I want to talk about, we actually asked about the channels that communicators are using. A lot of these that you know, but it's really good to get an idea of what's growing, what employees are paying attention to, what communicators are relying on the most, just kind of how that's working out in the world. So first, we just asked what channels and tactics are a part of your internal comms strategy. And our survey respondents told us overwhelmingly that email is still the backbone of internal comms. Rounding out the top three from these are your intranet and those in-person events. So this is really consistent year over year. Why do we think that is? Email is just, it tends to be, it's email, right? It's the most versatile and the farthest reaching channel for most companies. Email has a really cool ability to reach across time zones and roles and teams and all the different parts of your organization. It's super reliable. It's a great way to connect asynchronously when everyone's distributed in different places. And where we as communicators are able to really craft our messages how we want, send them there. Alongside, of course, we see a super high percentage of folks relying on intranet, which is no surprise, and that's super important. Alongside email, the intranet makes that hub where employees can access everything, and your email has somewhere to point to. We also, so I wanted to put these up together to really show about that dominance of email. I already mentioned that 84 effective. But it's really, I'm not just showing this because Workshop is an internal platform. It's more like here's why we are. This is why we believe in email. It's tempting to look at that new channel or that new idea as something that's just gonna like magically unlock the strategy, and it might make a big difference, but only if you're doing the fundamentals, that backbone, that core really well. So this is why we believe in email right here. We want to know if you are. Some folks are already saying it.
Yeah, so Kelsey is going to pop up a poll here, but we're looking to see kind of what tool are you using for internal email today? I know John's going to take us through like some sort of common strengths and challenges with email. And a lot of you are sharing a few of those in the chat, and that's amazing. But also just kind of seeing where everybody's at tech-wise. I will say, like, over the course of our last like 4 years at Workshop, I've seen it all. It does not even matter like size of organization. We have seen huge companies, like one of my favorite retail brands of all time, who it simply is using like a store in every mall, and they are using Outlook for their internal email. So I still see kind of everything all over the place. Obviously, there's a lot of great strengths in adopting sort of internal email and internal specific email, and we'll share a few of those too, but just kind of with email being that foundation of internal communications, where are you at? And like, do you have that tool to really deliver kind of those open rates and those great like segmented employee communications that we're all kind of hoping for this year and beyond? So let's see where we're at now. I know we've got a lot of great sort of chat requests too, and let everyone close the quiz. All right.
The poll results.
Then maybe Kelsey can share the.
Yeah, I'll jump in here and just share the poll here. So we've got quite a few people are using an internal tool, whether that a lot of folks here are actually on using Workshop, and then a few people, MailChimp. We've got about 4% using an external email tool like MailChimp or HubSpot. And then we've also got 49, about 50% are using just Outlook or Gmail today.
Yeah, that's very common in what we see. So definitely would say if you're using an internal email tool today, you're ahead of the curve. But if you are not, and you do have any budget to consider for next year, that is going to be the most effective place to put those dollars for sure.
There we go. Sorry, my clicker got a little funny. We just popped this up while we're talking email tools because we are just launching a set of really beautiful, and not just with Kelsey on there. Hi, Kelsey. Really good, gorgeous new templates within Workshop for people to use. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't show them off a little. And definitely say, come talk to us if an internal tool sounds like something that it could be in the cards for you in 2025. I want to move on because I am super obsessed with all this data and I really want to get into it. So I'm just going to forge ahead. We also asked, what channels or tactics do you find most effective? And we found the answer is similar. That 84% number I already referenced said that email. And then you see a pretty large drop off before we get to the next channels. But again, in-person events and intranet are showing up in that 2 and 3 spot. And so I think that the reason that email in effectiveness is so far ahead of the others is that all these other channels work and they're really specific to your company. So the way that you're organized might be super geared towards in-person events, or might be really distributed, need your internet or use your Microsoft Teams or even your app for one of these lower ones, but it still needs a push channel to get people there. And that tends to be email. And so I think that's why we see such a steep curve on here and such a still huge reliance on email, because no matter what else you're doing, there are pieces of that strategy that you still have to drive traffic to. Of course, the channels, there's always newness, and this is some of the most interesting stuff to come out of here. So these are 4 of the biggest movers from our 2024 report to our 2025 report. In-person events went from 57% to 69%. That is really going into a strong majority of people looking again at relying on face-to-face collaboration. Microsoft Teams took a large jump from 51 to 63. Frankly, that still seems low because it seems like everyone uses Teams, but I think that does reflect more people using more parts of Teams, not just your video chat tool, but you're actually using the Teams part and the chat channels and all those different things. It's built into a lot of folks' systems, especially if you can't get Slack. Digital events went up as well, 45 to 57%. So that is definitely people trying to recreate some of that face-to-face time, even in a remote or distributed hybrid environment. And then down here on the smaller side of things, but with encouraging growth, is employee text messaging. So that went up from 11% to 16% interest. That is still a small channel, and it's definitely not for everyone. But as we've gotten into it here, it's not for everyone, but it's very, very right for some. So it's encouraging to see that go up and have more interest in people reaching those frontline and deskless employees with text. Love to see what you're looking at, thinking about the most right now.
Yeah.
SharePoint. Enhancing SharePoint.
I know we were prompting a internet question in the chat here. So we've got a lot of internet focused ones. Any other channels that you're looking into for next year? I know there's a lot of interesting sort of hype around internal podcasts. We launched one this last year. So there's some fun things we're experimenting with. There we go. There's a few of you that are in the same boat. Mm-hmm. Great. Video.
Yep. Whatever the employees will use. There you go.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm interested in the video stuff because we did ask in the survey video, and we see, we've seen that moving. I've seen a fair amount of responses for it, but that can mean a lot. So if anyone has any insight on how you're using video, like how you're distributing it, how you're sharing it, what kind of stuff you're videoing, I think that would be really interesting for people to hear, just because it is kind of a broad term.
Yeah, the intranet, and I think on the internet front and on SMS, on intranets, I think it's really interesting that every year we consistently see that it's a priority, but it's not the most effective channel, which I think we're all just trying to like we all understand kind of the promise of that like all-in-one hub, like the, you know, that dream internet that's in your head. And I think like somewhere we just don't ever quite make it to that dream, right? Like in the adoption from those employees, or sort of in like the tech that we're using, or we're just trying to make it work. It takes like years sometimes to build out these internet projects. So I think we're all sort of chasing that dream always and forever. And then SMS, we often talk about, it's just like such a massive opportunity. We do only see like between 10 and 15% of companies using SMS to reach those like frontline employees, or the ones without email addresses. But I think the latest like McKinsey data shows that about 70% of employees are frontline. So you just look at that again, to your point, John, on like another gap, and it really does make a lot of sense why we see so much like frontline communication sort of stuff bubbling up. Very
Yeah,
cool.
lots of
Oh
really
my gosh,
interesting
so many
stuff.
good
I'm
stuff.
excited to go dig into the video comments just because that I'm seeing a lot of really interesting like comments just whiz by in the chat.
Yeah, and you cannot embed video and email. We get asked every single day. Oh, and if there's a team that can do it, I promise you it's the workshop product team. They're tinkering all the time, but we have not seen it happen yet. But we do have a lot of really fun features to add little play buttons and make sure that you can track a lot of those analytics, and get engagement on those videos that you are creating, because it is such a great like dynamic kind of way to create that like personalized content, and showcase some employees. So we get it, but technically we have not yet seen it happen where it can play in every client across the board. So we're working on it. We're working on it.
Okay, let's move on to a popular and high interest topic of metrics and measurement. I've already seen some questions flying through about it to dig in a little deeper. So let's talk about what we heard in the survey. We of course asked, how are we all measuring internal comms these days? And there's something really interesting happened. It's only by a little, but for the very first time, a quantitative metric is in the #1 spot in our survey. So this finally, it overtook some of the softer metrics and is in the top spot this year, which really says, I mean, it pays off something we've been seeing in the chat already, which is that, you know, internal tools like Workshop and others are starting to take hold. More people are finding ways to get get the metrics they need, especially open rates and click-through rates. Those are the ones, the specific answer that kind of won the survey here. Open rates and click-through rates are great metrics to get that bird's eye view of the comms culture at your organization. Just how are people at a high level engaging with them? They're also really easy to test. That's why we like those metrics. You know, you can optimize your subject lines, you can change your linking strategy, you can do all the different things and kind of try to move those around and get a little more effective. But as you go down through the rest of the results of this question, we understand that quantitative metrics don't tell the whole story. And so that's why you see the rest of this list. It's filled out with survey results, posts and comments and replies on the intranet, employee engagement metrics, and more. And so the full story there seems to be that although you know, someone said the numbers do not lie, although these real data-driven insights are starting to take hold, and we have more measurement tools than usual than before. The blend of those with these softer metrics is really how we tell the whole story of what's happening in our organizations. We find a lot of folks really love the pulse surveys, which is like a one question, super quick in email feedback mechanism that kind of takes the pressure off big surveys, and lets people just give you little pieces of feedback that help you shift your strategy at a time. I switched right to this, Jamie, because I see a lot of people already answering this question.
Yes. What metrics do you rely on the most? And what have you found really, really valuable? Yes, we will share the chat following this as well. But I think it was Michelle said numbers do not lie. We're getting a lot of understanding there. Tim says numbers do not lie is the best because people have say all the time, I read your emails, then I pull the report and show their bosses the receipt. That's one of our favorite features of Workshop, is that you can see down to the individual whether or not they've interacted with that email. So you always get that person who's like, oh, I never got that email. And you're like, no, Kevin, you did. And you didn't open it. So
I
you can
see
kind of
here,
drill
you did
into
not
that.
click.
Yep. Let's see. Blend of metrics for us. Feedback from events is really insightful. We always advocate, even though it's great, like that quantitative data is amazing. Love having like qualitative mixed into there too. I measure all
Casey
these
says,
things
make
with
a mistake and
question.
see how many people respond.
Yeah, just put a typo in the subject line and see if everyone's awake. You know, I get it. Let's see here. Let's see. There was a good question from Kevin. I measure all these things, but the question is, what do you actually do with the numbers? My email had a 61% open rate and a 15% click rate. So what? Great question. I think that's really about benchmarking and like what was the goal of that email to begin with. So we love benchmarking against your own data, not necessarily industry data. It gives you a kind of a place to start, but you really want to know, like, based on your own emails, was that a good email or was there room for improvement there? If the open rate's lower than what you expect, you can do a lot of stuff with subject lines or who you sent it from or time you sent it. If it's clicks, then there's a lot to do with the content and the CTAs. But yeah, it's just a good kind of way to judge like whether or not that communication is successful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Marie,
yeah.
we will have that within
Working on it.
the next 45 days.
That's the idea.
We got the trends report's where we start, but we're always working on content over here.
Thank you for not promising a date just yet.
Now Marie's gonna be like, it's been 45 days. Where is it? I'm on it.
See what we can do. Yes. Yes.
You got, yeah. Let us know what the benchmarks, like what, I know that there's, a variety of that kind of reporting out there, but if there's something specific, now is the time to give us that feedback because we're compiling all that data now. So if it's by org size, by industry, anything like that, let us know here and we'll definitely incorporate it.
Yeah, I'll take all this as my traveling orders for making the next report.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going because I think this is a really interesting one, and I think it's really pertinent given how many different tools we just heard about in the discussion. We asked, do you have the tools you need to measure the impact? And I've seen a lot of really interesting comments over there about that, of like, do quantitative, qualitative, etc. And the results that we got speak very well to that, because I would call these iffy to negative. That the total of 80% said neutral or worse to response to this question, despite the fact that we are seeing more open rates and click-through rates available. And that's just saying that if a little more than half the people have the tools, but they still aren't feeling like that's their whole story, and then the other half don't have tools at all, we're still struggling here. And so that just says to us is that this is the time and the place to keep having these discussions to talk about how do we craft that full story that blends the hard and soft metrics and the things that we can affect and the things we can't, and really just also should push us forward to practice how we demonstrate our impact and show our results within the org, because we have these things but we're not always completely sure what to do with them. That is, again, that's why there's a little look at kind of what analytics look like in Workshop. That's kind of the idea behind the things that we put together when we look at metrics. You can get your opens, your clicks, all those things that you kind of expect, your read times. But where really a lot of that value comes in is being able to break them down across your lists from your HRIS to get a clear picture of who's doing what. So instead of saying everyone got a 50%, you can say, look, managers aren't opening the emails, and that's probably a clue why this information isn't getting to the people on these teams. Or you can see that all of our remote folks aren't engaging with this kind of content, or those kind of like broader decisions, or like aha moments. That's really what all metrics is all about, is not trying to do everything all at once or understand a giant picture, but finding those little nuggets, or when I send them at this time, I don't get the same engagement, and so people don't follow up. Those kind of things that you can do something with strategically is the way why we arrange the metrics the way that we do, to try and lead you to those little small incremental but impactful tweaks that you can do with your strategy. Speaking of tweaks and changes to your strategy, the next section of the report is about the challenges. So this survey also revealed a ton about where communicators are struggling and what we're facing. So we asked to kind of open this up. Do your internal comms channels effectively reach all your employees? And again, the answer is quite neutral, which is not a huge confidence builder, despite our little furry friend there popping out and causing massive distraction in the chat. I think that some of the reasons why that we're feeling this way is really related to some of the other trends that we're seeing. So we're seeing the rise of distributed teams that since the pandemic and all of that, we were more fractured than ever in the ways that we work. And so every team is super different and has trouble with that. The inclusion of frontline employees at some point, I think a lot of comms folks started to realize that that part of the workforce is part of the question too. And they went, ooh, we don't really have a great solution there. I actually am not reaching all my employees, even though I'm reaching all of my folks who have email. And then of course, remote work and all that. So these new channels are helping, but we are still seeing, as we understand a clearer picture of what a whole workforce might be, that some of these challenges are still there. So tailoring our messages, finding tools that make our communications really inclusive of job types and employee types and locations, and really accessible no matter where people are. That seems to be the key to trying to build this confidence that we're not really seeing from this answer here. We also said to dive in a little further on that, where are you struggling the most? And so the top three I find really, really interesting. So we heard that more people are measuring their results than ever. We also heard, to almost the exact same percentage here, that measuring results is the hardest challenge. So we've touched on this already, but we're getting the numbers, but we still don't feel like we're talking about results. And so this is a persistent challenge that we're going to continue to try and figure out how to address. The second one was a lack of engagement at 55%. This one, that's the always on challenge, right? If we weren't worried about our employees not engaging enough and trying to get them to engage more, I'm not sure we'd have jobs in internal comms. We always want more engagement. This is the eternal struggle, is getting people to pay attention and value internal comms, and understand what we can use, how we can get them more engaged in what's going on in their companies and their jobs. And then the third one is really interesting because it's a huge leap up from last year. This was way down the radar last year, and it's at 53% now, which is getting content from other departments. Because this was such a big jump, this was the one where I wanted to focus a little more on and give some strategies to help with. It's really hard to collaborate with other folks or people who aren't necessarily evaluating internal comms or understanding what internal comms can do for them. So some things that we can do to make a little dent in this is try making a comms request chat channel in your Slack or your Teams, and make sure that people know that that's there. And it's something that's always on, where if they have something they want to get communicated to the org, they can put that out. You can go double up on that and put a request form on your intranet or in your newsletter as well, and really actively push people to request comms from you and tell you what they want you to say. And then we always encourage setting up a regular update for the team leaders on what you're planning to do and what's coming up in internal comms, because it gives them time to think about how getting involved in the internal comms can help them move their own strategy forward. We always think that as building a culture of communication, which is not like, they're over there, I can use them if I want, but I see how comms can help me and my team do better. With email, we're seeing improvements on measuring results overall. We're seeing a lot of the numbers went up around personalization and graphic design and copywriting. The teams are helping us make the things, but we are still struggling there with getting the content. Struggling with last minute requests. I've seen a couple of those go by in the chat, and still struggling with those deskless or frontline employees as well. This has already started, but I'll let Jamie kick off the actual discussion.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a little crowdsourcing advice So let us know kind of what one of your biggest challenges has been this year. And we'll go ahead and pick 3 and we can all offer advice for those individuals in the channel. I've got one because it seems a few of you bubbled it up already, which is, what do you do when you have remote employees that refuse to open emails, regardless of the employee knowing the importance of internal emails? That was from Lindsay. And I think Becca also thumbs up that one. So we'll start there. Yeah. What do you do when you have remote employees that refuse to open emails, regardless of employees knowing the importance of internal emails? I know, I think I saw Zane mention, like, you're not going to reach everyone. It's not us, it's them. There is some definite truth to that. I know from our perspective, we always say, even though obviously like email is that backbone and it's a great way to reach a huge portion of your workforce, you'll never reach 100% of your employees with one channel. You'll never get an 100% open rate. So you do need that nice mix to be able to reach those remote employees that just, we all have our communication preferences, right? So maybe text is great for them. Maybe signs in the break room is great for them. And you just really have that nice channel mix to kind of get yourself ultimately to that 100% sort of reach rate. Let's see, we've got some other good advice here. Considering leader communications to grease the wheels. That's a great suggestion, Paul. Like it's definitely that manager leadership communications has really sort of exploded over the last, I would say, like year and a half. We've seen so much more focus on that. We've seen like dedicated leadership email campaigns and workshop being built a lot. So we see that one for sure. Thanks for all that. Very good.
Yeah. I might
all
cut
right,
you off
let's
at
do
2
another
there,
one,
Jamie.
I know, right?
Because I want to talk about trends and have time for some of the Q&A stuff. So I might cut you off at 2 and roll through a report and keep going.
All right. Excellent. Let's just do one more then and say, how do we get leaders involved? We've seen that one a lot too. So anyone here that, again, like we see that one bubble up really, really frequently. Any advice that you have here in the chat for those individuals that are struggling with getting leaders involved? Please feel free to pop in there. I know, again, for us, getting them bought into those like regular communication cadences, being able to share their email data. So like my favorite one I always use is like with the CEO. If you want them to care about internal communications, tell them how many people open their weekly letter from the CEO, and it's never 100, and they will come back to you for it, for ideas on how to improve that. So that's fantastic. Showing leaders their team's metrics. Again, yeah, pulling all of that by department is such like a huge unlock for sure. Scheduling meetings with CEO and VPs, talking about the issues you're seeing with engagement from leaders. I love that, John. Oh my gosh, this is such a good list.
I know.
We're just gonna like pull all of this. Amazing.
Yeah,
very cool. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, I'll give you time, John. This is I just like don't want to miss. The chat is just, every time. This is how we feel every time.
We're gonna. This is going to break the record for how much chat there is too. This is really exciting. And like Kelsey said, we will send it out to everyone. We'll find out. I am only being pushy because this is the trends report, and I want to talk about the trends. So I want to get into what people are looking forward to for 2025. This is the question that we shouldn't even really bother asking anymore, because as we said, are you planning to adapt your strategy for 2025? 85% or more are going to do that. I mean, obviously, of course we are. Business is changing, employee bases are changing, comms tools are changing, everything's changing. So of course our strategies are needing to adapt too. So this is really good to see. Internal communicators as a whole are not stuck in their ways, and they're looking for the next thing. So what is it that they're looking for? What are we looking about? What kind of goals are people setting? We asked, what are your goals for 2025? And what we saw is that people are really focused on driving engagement, on creating alignment, and making sure their efforts are measurable. How that kind of translates to some actual goals was our number one nearly 8 out of 10 folks said that engaging employees and creating a better workplace is their top goal. That sounds like doing really great internal comms, right? That sounds like that is kind of the big lofty goal of what we're trying to do. But it's great to see that, we're recognizing that a supportive work culture isn't just like nice to have or like a cool idea, but it's actually really essential for the company. And we're seeing that as our core purpose, which is awesome. Nearly as many were said that they were focusing on creating organizational alignment, which is, we've already heard some of that too, which is getting your leaders involved, having good collaboration across the org, and making sure that we're connecting our communications and collaborating with everyone. And we want everyone to see and understand the value of what we're doing in internal comms. And so when that's happening, we know that we can be more effective and achieve that top goal, in a much smarter way. The third one really ties into painting this whole picture, which was 68% said supporting overall business goals is their top goal for the year, which is excellent because that's something that we advocate for a lot, is that making sure that internal comms is directly linked to the overall business goals, because that helps you showcase your value, that helps you get support, it might even help you get budget, and it really helps make sure that you are driving employees in the same direction as everything else. Rounding out the top 5 there is transparency and metrics, which are not surprising at all. Some of those are the tools that help build that trust and help build that story, that are going to help achieve those top 3 engaging and alignment type of goals. We're actually going to take a second to not ask a question, and just talk about 3 really easy ways to kind of work towards those goals. First is to get strategic with your content. And that sounds broad, I know, but what we really mean by that is managing those metrics, and making sure that they are connected to company goals. So if you're talking about open rates, make sure that you know what the big umbrella goals for your org are, and that you can talk about how more employees opening the emails and getting that information is going to move the company towards that goal, and just making that link really clear for employees and for leadership so they understand what we're trying to do with internal comms. Someone there is just saying metrics equals proof of ROI equals business goals to better workplace. Like that's exactly what we're talking about there, is like drawing those lines with your content. The next thing we always say to do is to prioritize engagement that goes beyond open rates. So making it really easy for employees to interact and not waiting for that big employee engagement survey at the end of the year or some other time. It might be a pulse survey. It might just be letting people reply. It might be enabling likes or comments or things like that on your intranet software. Just things that you can get little pieces of information back all the time will be really great. And then third, make sure that you're taking those stories, taking that advice, and showcasing the value of what you're doing and how you're doing it. In other words, hype yourself and don't be afraid to put together these little stories. You don't have to wait till you make a big annual report on the state of comms at your organization. You can look for little stories and little wins to make sure that you're showing how well you're doing all the time. And we definitely want to talk about what goals you have for this year before we do a little bit about trends.
Yeah, let us know if that resonates. If any of this is resonating with you, what are your comms goals? Lots of good conversation on there's lots of ties with employee engagement, and I think we're always trying to figure out what that correlation really is between employee engagement and internal communications, and what does that line look like. Lots of good movement on strategic business goals and alignment there. Lots of that falls into that internal comms having a seat at the table, not wanting to just be an order taker for someone's newsletter, that kind of thing. So we see a lot of good stuff there. Let's see, for Robert, it's adding new channels to meet employees where they're already communicating. That's our entire philosophy as well. Love meeting employees where they're at rather than sort of needing to push them all to one place. So I love that strategy. For Kevin, manager comms, change management comms, big picture, what is the company's strategy comms? You've got your to-do list there. That's a great list. And definitely all 3 of those we hear very frequently. Let's see, Adam, increasing two-way communication. We love that too. Being able to get feedback from your comms and not just push it one way is definitely a good way to move things. Let's see. Got Victoria creating an organizational calendar. Yes, 100%. We're always chasing that dream of a calendar as well that's clean and understood and not trying to get those last minute requests. And
that can really help with that collaboration goal that people are, you know, we heard a lot of people struggling with the collaboration and the requests and all those things. A calendar, I think that our internal comms manager, Devin, would really speak to the value of sharing a calendar and letting everyone see, and how that can help really just reduce the chaos surrounding getting content for our comms.
Yeah, love it.
Why there is a good comms calendar template, Kelsey just posted our own. We just updated it for 2025, which is like there's an Excel one and a Google Sheets one and a PDF one that you can use as a base for starting your own comms calendar. It's a free download, Kelsey just popped up there for you. And then if you have a tool like Workshop, like we love our editorial calendar within our tool that helps you get all that organized and really show what's actually being planned. Yeah, she would. All right. All right, and the very last section here is just about what trends people are interested in exploring. So this is more of the things that we're not doing yet, but we're curious about, and what we want to think about. I want to skip right to talking to the top 4 of these trends, just because I want to know if this is resonating with the group here, and if this, you know, how representative this is. I think I can already say that it is, given what we've been hearing in the chat. But the thing that we really like about what we heard on this question is it looks like the spotlight is really focused on who we're targeting first, and the tactics come second. This is a much more strategic mindset than just naming a bunch of channels, because we're actually thinking about our employees holistically and who they are and what's going to resonate with them, rather than saying like, oh, I want to launch X. We're thinking about the people, which is really great. So 68% of people said manager communications. Just about that amount of you over in the chat said it as well. It's been the top answer of our question for 3 years in a row. So that says that it's really important, and it also says that the answers are unclear. And I think that's partially because it's really specific to your org, how those managers are functioning and communicating, and it's something to dig into as a communicator. Half of folks said frontline employee comms they're curious about. I think that's that recognition that our employees are more than our office employees, and that we have to figure out how to make those comms more equitable and accessible for everyone. A pretty large number said creating employee influencers. This is something we've talked about a lot at Workshop as well. I think we've done a whole webinar on it in the past. But this is about finding the people in your org who have that influence because of who they are and how they work, and using your comms channels to amplify them and give them the outlet to kind of do the heavy strategic lifting for you, and influence their employees in a positive way. And then it's a strong number of people are looking at those AI tools. So a number of different internal comms tools and other tools are really building AI functionality in and kind of getting smarter about it to really go beyond just like, ChatGPT, write this for me, which doesn't actually come out that great. But there are some really cool things out there for how to build them into your actual work. Is there anything I would just love to chat a little bit about how that's resonating with the group here, if those are your top trends or not?
Thought leadership, we hear that one pretty frequently too. Frontline employee communication, Stacy says storytelling. That's also a huge topic for us as well. Michelle, doing more with less is a trend. I hope it ends. Right? Oh my gosh. Lots of good ones on storytelling. I love that so much. Dana, pop culture style communication. That sounds fun. Would love to explore that more for sure.
Executive, yeah.
And gamification. Yep, we've heard that one a few times too.
Some AI questions, not surprised there.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and hopefully for whether or not you're adding to the chat or doing it, this is you've got about a month worth of work just digging in with the answers here to see if any of the stuff that other people are working on are things that you'd like to get involved with. Believe it or not, we are getting ready to wrap up. I want to leave a tiny space for a Q&A. So I just since you all have the report or can get the report, I'm not even going to do this wrap up of our top trends. I think we've moved beyond it. We've all got this. You'll get all the materials from this and the report as well. So please dig in and take as much information from that as you can and make sure to do that. I do want to move on to just our open sort of Q&A, which is really just, is there anything left that you would want to ask the group? You have a few hundred friends here.
Yes, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A if you have any other questions, just to like funnel out. And then I know a lot of people want to kind of take this conversation and continue it. So we are going to drop a link to our comms chat group on LinkedIn as well. So please feel free to join us there. We will definitely be continuing a lot of these conversations and would love to stay connected and kind of keep this all going. But yeah, sharing best practices in internal communications, like our whole thing is kind of about transparency and internal comms. And it's really difficult to know like what everybody else is doing and what's working for everyone else because it's, internal. So you can't share examples or, highlight all of your great campaigns on LinkedIn all the time. So really great. All right, let's do a couple of quick questions. We got a few minutes here. Let's see, any resources that can help set our own benchmarks? Yeah, I mean, we've definitely got a few like metrics-based resources on useworkshop.com. If you check out our resource center, there's lots of good sort of like metrics-based resources there. And then within workshop, obviously, we have a lot of campaign data and that kind of thing. So you can really see like how one campaign might be comparing to another, how one email might be comparing to another, and sort of get an idea of like, okay, if I send my newsletter out every Monday, how do I start to see like this newsletter is better than others, that kind of thing. Let's see. There's a good anonymous one here. What do you suggest is the main focus for someone new to internal comms? And that one's great for anyone to answer. If you're new to internal comms, what would you suggest as a main focus out the gate? Not just me.
The first thing you would do. I know what our comms manager, Devin, would say.
Go for it.
Take a survey, understand what's happening now. Listen, there we go. Casey said it too.
Devin's gonna correct you in the chat.
Oh no!
You don't get it right. No, I'm just kidding. No, a lot of people said the same thing.
Right.
Casey said, "Listen, start to understand your audience, learn the company voice." Lots of great suggestions there for sure. A listening tour is also where Devin started on her first day too. So I would agree. If you're brand new to internal comms, I think just listening, whether doing a survey paired with a listening tour, you will have so much to bring back, share with leadership, and really sort of like illuminate what is and isn't working in internal comms. And we will send the recording, the slides, the trends report, and the chat transcript to everybody following this too. So you will get all those ideas. Combing through this chat is another one.
Good luck. That might be a good use for AI.
Exactly. Very cool. All right, question.
Yeah, Robert,
Once you've created all, go ahead. Once you've created all the tools and processes, it feels training is necessary. Any tips on training post-implementation? That's a good one. training, I assume training as far as like internal communications and just like, especially if you have a larger sort of team on the internal comm side. I think on average, what did the survey show? On average, most people are on a team of under 3 for sure. Lots of solo internal communicators, as we all know, but I think on average, if you're training a team of 2 to 3, I would just keep the training sort of repeatable, keep it like frequent, that kind of thing. But usually, you're gonna be able to kind of do like a regular cadence. Like for us, we're on a marketing team of 10 and we're about to start implementing like a bi-weekly training just to keep everybody sort of up to date. So that's the cadence that we've adopted. Very cool.
3, 2, 3.
Team of 1, 2. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. All right. Beautiful. Any last thoughts, John?
Gosh, no, I just really want to thank everybody for such a fun and constructive chat. This is everything I hoped it would be as far as you all sharing and sharing with each other and with us, and just trying to, we started this report looking for that visibility into what each other were doing. I think this is just a really great piece of that. And I hope that you all feel as good as we do about getting insights from each other and moving internal comms forward for another year. So thank you all for coming. Have a great rest of your week.
And year.
Good luck out there. And year, yes, and your holidays and your December and your New Year's and all of your things. Just let us know how you're doing and how we can help.
Sounds great. Thanks, everybody.
And take care.